Welcome back. Today I want to talk about phono cartridges. Why? Because with this massive resurgence in vinyl, even I have got my record collection back. I gave it all away many years ago. I've got myself a nice turntable with a lovely cartridge setup, and I'm happy. But when I look at the topic from an outside standpoint and imagine that I didn't get all the advice that I have, how on earth would I choose? Some of the big names I used to know have gone. New names have arrived. And some of the old names, well, are they still any good? Were they ever any good? So in this 3-part series, of which this is part 1, and there may be a 4th or 5th, who knows, one day, I'm going to look at the cartridge manufacturer Hana, because they've seemed to have come from nowhere and they have dominated the market to a great extent over the last years and months and years, I was going to say. So who is this for? This is for anyone who's interested in learning more about phono cartridges, the differences. We're going to focus mostly on moving coil. And what's more, I'm going to, or have done already, made recordings of all of the outputs of all of the cartridges we're going to talk about. I've uploaded them to our website, and you'll be able to go there via the link from the description below, and then you'll be able to download the full song of every cartridge, and you'll really be able to compare, because I've recorded it straight from the back of the wonderful Gold Note PH1000 phono stage, and I've just done a video on that if you're interested in seeing it and checking it out. It's amazing. It's really a vinyl lover's dream, because it's like a Swiss Army knife. You can do whatever you like with it. So how did I go about this? How did I do the comparisons? Well, first of all, I reached out to a number of companies, Hana, Gold Note and Autophon in the first place, and I said, look, send me a load of cartridges. And over the weeks and months, I'm going to listen to them all. I'm going to invite my friends round. I'm going to invite my listening panels round. I'm going to get them to choose what they want to do, what they like, what they don't like, why, what would they go for. And so for that, I also needed a turntable. So when I was in Exponor, I was looking for various turntables, and I went into one room, and there it was. There was the TT Hub, it's called, from Connected Fidelity. Michael Osborne is the owner of that company and the designer of the turntable. And I said, Michael, how much does that cost? And he said, it's £5,000. I thought, oh, that's a reasonable price. Didn't realize at the time that was without the pickup arms. But anyway, he very kindly lent me one, and I will be doing a review on that later on. And he lent me one with 2 tone arms. So what it meant was I could put 2 cartridges on at the same time, play the record at the same time, and then switch from tone arm 1 to tone arm 2. And the great thing is I could do all of that via the remote control from the Gold Note PH1000. In fact, I could have done it with a PH10, but I thought, what the hell, let's get the best for this, because the price ranges I'm going to be looking at vary enormously. I also was using the LTA preamplifier. That's really good, because when I was switching sources and things like that, it remembers the volume of one source over another. So again, I could make really good comparisons. So that's what I did. And I'm really excited to share with you the first set of results from Hana, because I knew nothing about Hana beforehand. And just in case you don't either, I made a few notes here. Excuse me if I read from this. So the story really begins in 1964 with Masao Akada-san, the Japanese gentleman who begins research and development on phono cartridges. And by 1970, he's founded a company called Excel Sound Corp, which are still in business today, and they're still making cartridges today. very much so. So he initially focused on OEM, original equipment manufacturing cartridges, and that production. And he hand-built moving coil cartridges in small batches. That's how he started. And today they are still manufacturing cartridges, as I say. Now, in 2015, a gentleman called Hiroshi Ishihara, another Japanese gentleman who had a company called the UTEC Corporation, and who was good friends of Okada's son, said, look, would you design me some moving coil cartridges? I think there's a gap in the market for really good quality cartridges, but I want to start at a low entry, because traditionally moving coil have always been so much more expensive than moving magnet, and it seemed a bit unfair to him. And he thought, well, with modern technology, surely we can close the gap a little bit. So amazingly, within 12 months, in 2016, Hiroshi Ishihara and Hana has launched his very first set of cartridges under the name of Hana. Now, if you're wondering what Hana means, in Japanese it means brilliant or gorgeous. Okay, so you can choose which one you like, or both, and that's it. So Hana seemed to have a really, as far as I could see, a rapid success, because the name was everywhere. Sure, we saw advertising in all the magazines, but people were raving about them. Reviewers were really raving about them. But I also put a lot of that down to ignorance, and I mean that politely. But if you're like me, listening to vinyl again after 20, 30 years, I mean, when you hear some of the turntables that are around, they sound so damn good, and the cartridges sound good, and actually vinyl sounded better than I remembered it. So I remembered it as being a pain and crackly and unpleasant and all the things, but actually it sounded really good. So is it the cartridge? Is it the tone arm? What is it? Is it the phono stage? Oh, I should also mention that the two tone arms are from Sorane, which is a Japanese manufacturer, and obviously Michael imports those, and you can order different tone arms for his turntable. But we had two Sorane tone arms, exactly the same, so that we could do very fair side-by-side comparisons. But as I say, we'll talk more about that in a later talk. So I want to start with the Hana SL stereo cartridge. I picked up the wrong one. That's the mono. Here's the stereo. It's the SL stereo Mark II, because apparently there was a big difference between the Mark I and the Mark II. Apparently the Mark I had some harshness on it, or that's what some people were saying, and they worked hard on it, and they brought the Mark II out in 2015. Now, it's got a nude Shibata diamond stylus. Now, what does that mean, a nude diamond stylus? Well, basically what it means is it's a polished diamond, a real diamond, and it's fixed into the cantilever. It's not just sort of glued on top. It's actually fixed right into the shaft of the cantilever. And that's what it means. This allows it to be lower mass, which is good because we don't want too much mass at that point. So the stylus can move much more easily within the groove modulations. It should have a better high frequency tracking, and it should have a longer lifespan, which is very important because all of these things are not cheap. Now, in the SL Mark II, with the Shibata stylus, it comes with different variants. It's 750 euros, which actually for a moving coil is pretty good price, to be honest. It's got a tapered aluminium cantilever, and this is the weird thing, and I know that my friend Michael Osborne's really into this, which is cryogenically treatment. Cryogenically treated, which means that you put something into this like deep freeze, and they freeze it down to some incredible temperature. I don't know what it's like, minus 50 degrees, even more probably. I'll write down the number in the subtitles here. But it goes really, really cold, basically. And that apparently changes the molecular structure slightly, which makes things more conductive or whatever. Anyway, in this case, the yoke, the pole pieces, the gold terminal pins are all cryogenically treated. So now there's a generator in this thing, which obviously generates electricity, the moving coil itself. And in this one, it is the same as their Umami Blue. And you'll see later on that they have one called the Umami Blue and the Umami Red. That's like the top of the range. We'll get to that in a few minutes' time. But if you want to jump to that straight away, I'll put them all in chapters anyway to make it quicker and easier for you. Now, so it uses that same generator. The ML has the same generator as well, which is the next one up. We'll talk about that in a minute. You use an Alnico magnet, and it's got a cross coil design. This is a really sophisticated thing. And the copper wire, and it's a very, very high pure copper wire, 30 microns, so it's very, very thin wire, and overall 8 ohm impedance. You don't need to worry about what the impedance of the cartridge is too much, unless you want to go into another depth, which I won't do in this series. But it has an output of 0.4 millivolts, which for a moving coil cartridge is about normal. And so they have two of these. You see, they've got this one, and then they have another one, which is the high output. Now, the high output is exactly the same in every way, but it has a 2 millivolt output. And with a 2 millivolt output, it means you can basically use it in any moving magnet phono stage. So when you buy a phono stage, you'll have moving magnet or moving coil, depending on which. So you need to choose. And the big problem was for a lot of people who want moving coil, because the output's traditionally so low, they can't use it with their standard phono stage input. So if you've got a number of, especially the older receivers, they would have a moving magnet input, but they wouldn't necessarily have a moving coil. So then you need a step-up transformer, or you need to buy an external phono stage with the right settings in it. Now, this thing, it needs an 80 ohm load with the moving coil. So the big advantage with Hana, and I don't know if they were the first, but they were really pushing for it, was to make a moving coil cartridge, but with a high output, so you could just plug it straight in to your normal moving magnet input. And that meant it needed to see a resistance load of 47 kilo ohms, which is the standard for moving magnet. And thank goodness that's all standardized on that side of things, more or less. So this SL, I will talk about how it sounds in a minute. All I will say at this stage was it sounded really good to me. I mean, I was really impressed with it. The listening panel were as well. But what I didn't have was the high output. So I couldn't compare it the low with the high output, but I could in the next range up. But I just want to say that there is also a mono version. Now, this dinky little mono version is exactly the same in every way. And so what I've done is I've got a nice old Stan Getz recording with Oscar Peterson Trio in mono. And I have recorded the mono cartridge and the stereo cartridge playing the same record. And I've uploaded that. So if you go into the description, you'll see the link to where to go. And then you can listen to the stereo cartridge playing a mono record and a mono cartridge playing a mono record, because you will want to decide, is it worth, if you've got a lot of mono records, is it worth spending money on a separate mono cartridge? I mean, that was the advantage of the turntable hub with its two pickup arms, is that you could have one pickup arm for your mono records, your old records, and one for your stereo records. So to be honest with you, I was quite surprised that the difference wasn't bigger. What I did notice was with the SL mono, there was less track noise. So there's less noise from the record itself and more information. And sitting in the room, listening in stereo to a mono record with a mono cartridge. Now, a lot of mono freaks will only have one loudspeaker, of course, to be true. But if you've got it set up like this, then the image was nice and centered, and I had the feeling it was fuller. Was it a big difference? No. Would it justify paying extra? You have to decide. Listen to them both, and then you decide which one you prefer, because these are personal things. I've got a number of mono records. I haven't got a hell of a lot of them, and I play everything on my Naya here, or back in my home studio where I just have a Goldring Lenko with a Shure moving magnet Shure cartridge, and there I just use the same one for both the mono and stereo. So that's for you to decide, but I thought it's a unique opportunity to be able to compare the identical cartridge side by side playing a mono record. Now, I should have mentioned that Hana also had, released in 2015, two cheaper ones, the EL and the EH. Again, L meaning low output and H meaning high output. Now, these were aimed at budget, and I've translated the UK price list into euros, so forgive me if it's not exactly right. But instead of 750 for the SL, you're paying 486 for the ELs. So they're using a synthetic elliptical diamond, again on an aluminium cantilever, and the outputs are 0.5 millivolt and 2 volts, so that's quite standard. But watch out, because the EL wants a 400 ohm load. And what I've learned with this exercise is using the PH1000 phono stage from Gold Note, because you can so easily adjust on the front the loadings, the capacitance and the loadings and the outputs. You can even make your own EQ in there, but I didn't deal with that for this exercise. But because you can do that, what I noticed was, but if I put, for example, the SL on a setting which it didn't suit it, so assume it said it wants to be 80 ohms or more, and I put it on 10, or I put it on 600 or 80, you could really hear a difference, and sometimes it was dramatic. So if the output says, in this case for the EL, 400 ohms, make sure you've got a 400 ohm option on your phono stage, because a lot of phono stages don't have it. You need to check that. I need to say immediately the Gold Note has them all, and Gold Note also make a PH5, which is the entry model, which is a single input, but it has all the features, or a lot of the features that you need. All of those impedances are available at the twist of a dial, and I think for most people that would be absolutely good enough. So that's the EL, EH, SL and SH and SL monos. Wow, we're getting through them. I will, at the end of this talk, come to a conclusion about which ones I like best, which ones I would buy, what the feedbacks were from the listening group. But until then, we need to press on. We've got more to talk about. Now, let's have a look at what the ML and the MH, because these are the upmarket. These are the posh ones, and you can tell they're posh because they look pretty similar. So the SL and the ML look pretty similar, but the ML has got a very posh gold, I don't know whether you can see this here, but we'll photograph it and put it up, a gold ring just around the top of it, which makes it look splendid in the pickup arm, because it's got a gold crest on the Japanese logo on the front. So it looks really splendid sitting in the arm. Now, the ML and MH came onto the market 2 years later in 2017, and it's quite pricey. It's priced at $1,200. So we're getting into the serious should I, shouldn't I kind of range here. It's got a nude microline stylus, so that means it's basically fixed into the cantilever. Now, microline basically means it's a very small, and it's going to fit further and deeper into the groove. The Shibata basically has a different, how can I say, it's got a different shape and a different format to it. So we will put in the subtitles, if I can find a drawing, an illustration, I'll pop one in to make it clear. But this micro line is something that Hana are very excited about. And the casing here is a polyoxymethylene. I didn't say that very well. A polyoxymethylene body, a POM body as they call it, which means it's very, very rigid. It's not too heavy. And it has a tapered cantilever. So the little cantilever which the diamond is fixed into is on it. And again, like the SL, the yoke, the pole pieces, the gold terminal pins are all cryogenically treated. The generator is the same as the Umami Blue, and as we said earlier. And it has a 0.4 millivolt output. And then the MH has a 2 millivolt output. And the MH, again, you can plug that straight into your moving magnet cartridge. So this is a massive, massive advantage. If you want the finesse of a moving coil cartridge, but you haven't got a moving coil cartridge phono stage, you pick this thing up, the MH, you can plug it straight in to your normal phono stage input, your moving magnet one, and it will work out of the box. Now, I can hear you saying, Harley, but what is the difference? How do they sound? What was the difference between them? Well, there was a difference between them, but it was very small. Small enough to say, if you've got a good phono stage already, but it's only moving magnet, if you haven't got a gazillion dollar system with really the finest speakers and everything, and you don't want to change your phono stage because it's in a vintage system or for whatever reason you really like the one you've got, I wouldn't have any hesitation in going for the MH, or the SH from. Even though I haven't actually heard it, I'm pretty sure if it's behaving the same way as the difference between the ML and the MH, it's going to be fine. If you've got a moving coil phono stage and you want to go to the nth degree, yeah, then go for it. But in all essence, the sound character is very similar. And again, you can go to our website. You can go, put the link in. You can just download the two recordings. They're absolutely identical. We've matched the volume of the output. You can just play one, and I've let it run in. The track runs in so you can really hear the groove noise. And you can play the ML versus the MH, and you can decide for yourself. Did you hear a difference? Is it enough to warrant paying? Well, they're the same price. I mean, they're both the same price to upgrading your moving coil to a moving coil phono stage. So that's for you to decide, and that's the excitement and that's the fun. Now, obviously, I've recorded from the output, the single-ended output of the PH1000 straight into my recording device. I've just used 44.1 16-bit. That is enough to make an exact copy of an analog curve, so that is absolutely fine, and it keeps the file sizes nice and small for you to download. It's realistic, but you can really make a choice and decide. Now, I will summarize again in a minute at the end, but now I want to move on to sort of the top, the Umami cartridge. I'm taking it off because it's such a beautiful thing to look at. It really is. I love the way the sides are sculpted here. And one of the things you notice immediately with this is the fact that the generator, the coil, and the tiny cantilever are external. You can actually see them. They're just sort of clipped into there. When you look at one of the other cartridges like the SL, and you look at the two cantilevers together, you will see the difference in thickness between the aluminium and the boron cantilever. is massive. This boron cantilever is so fine you can hardly see it. It's very, very similar to that in the Philia 2. I think in the Philia 2 it's even finer. I might be wrong, but whatever it is, they are very fine. So this is the Umami Blue. Now, umami in Japanese means delicious flavor. But it is a really sexy looking thing. I love it. And I love the little way they got the logo on the front here. I think it's fabulous. Now, it's doing a function. It's holding these pieces aside. But it's manufactured in-house at XL Sound. So it's obviously one of their high-end ranges. Came to the market in 2022. It's got, again, a nude microline stylus. Now, the Duralium or aluminium aura-shaped, ear-shaped body with its boron cantilever. Again, cryogenically treated, and the pins on the back of the cartridge, you can't see them here, but they're 24 karat gold plated, as I say, with this open air coil generator. It has a 0.4 millivolt output, so there's no high voltage in that one. And a standard 100 ohm loading. Again, I must emphasize, when you are choosing a cartridge, look carefully at your phono stage, look and see what loadings it's got. And if you're choosing a cartridge that hasn't got those loadings, be very careful, because you almost certainly won't get the best out of the cartridge. Now, this blue, Umami Blue, is a whopping €2,500. Now, of course, there are cartridges way more expensive than that. I mean, when you look at Van den Hal and even the Philia 2 from Riga, this is on another level. But this is €2,500. When you're comparing it to the ML, we're going up, €1,300, which is no small amount. But I haven't finished yet, because now we've got the Umami Red. I'm going to be very careful with this one, because there we go. This is their Rolls Royce. This has got an ebony, wooden ebony front plate on it. It's absolutely fantastic. I love the way the logo's in there. I'll try and get some pictures of that. Again, obviously, it's manufactured at XL Sound. Came to market in 2020, so it's been on the market for a while now, and I know a lot of reviewers have raved about this, and I totally get it. It's €4,000. €4,000. Again, nude microline diamond, same tapered body as the blue, boron cantilever, cryogenically treated. Everything is exactly the same, but obviously it's just gone to that next level up. I don't quite know what they've done differently between the two, but what I can say, I think the boron cantilever on this one looks to me to be a bit thinner. I don't know if it is, but it looks like it is. But it really is fantastic. Everyone in the listening panel loved the Umami Red. Now, I have to tell you, at various stages, they didn't know, for example, with the red and blue, which one they were listening to, whether it was the blue or whether it was the red, and which one was the most expensive, because I could just go click from 1 to 2 and I could cover the screen of the PH1000, so they didn't know which one I was playing. I did, so you can't call it double blind, but I just switched it across without talking and let them decide. The Umami Red has oodles of detail. So when the sound of instruments are fading in the echo of a hall, if it's a concert hall, if it's a classical music or something, you could really hear the decay. It's beautiful. Very crisp, very detailed. The hair, the breathing in, the breathing out of the singers and stuff was really clear. Now, but it wasn't too much. It was never, ever harsh. The blue, to me, sounds a little bit smoother in the sense that it's, I had the feeling that the high end was a little bit, I don't think it's rolled off isn't the right way, but it wasn't so present. For some records, I liked the blue. But again, I've made recordings from Clare Teal and the Sid Lawrence Orchestra. The tribute to Ella Fitzgerald. We'll put up the album there. You can't get the album by streaming. You have to click on the link in our video in the description, and then you will go to a website where you can buy it. Mike Valentine very kindly allows me to use this for my talks, but he will send you a copy for yourself. But again, you can listen to the blue, you can listen to the red, and you can decide for yourself, is that price difference worth it? What did I say that the blue was? The blue's 2,500, the red is 4,000. So, it's a significant difference. Is it worth it? If I could afford it and I was buying and I had the cash, I would go for the red. For me, it was clear, and I think nearly everybody on the panel agreed, except there was one cartridge that we all really, really liked. And, and to be fair, the blue or the red, I could very happily live with either of them. The difference isn't that big. So if I had all the money falling out of my pockets, I would buy the red. But if I settled for the blue and saved myself a lot of money, because, for that price difference, you could go out and buy loads of vinyl or go to some live concerts. And that would be a very good choice, to be honest. Buy lots of vinyl and save yourself some money, especially if you've already got loudspeakers which are with a lot of crispness, a lot of detail in the top end. Then, yeah, Focal, for example, some of the Bowers and Wilkins ranges, the stand mount speakers, some of the ones that they have with the diamond tweeters, then the blue will be fine, I'm sure. But the standout one for me was the cheeky little Hana SL Mark II. This was really, really good. I mean, there was no one on the listening panel who said, oh, what is this we're listening to? Everyone agreed that this was a standout cartridge. I don't know how well it sells in the UK. I know that Michael told me, because he distributes these, that one of them sold just in massive numbers. I think it might have been the SL. I'll put it in the subtitles. Anyway, and for a lot of us, we would said, you know what? I think I'd just buy the SL and have done with it. And if I had the spare cash, and if I had a really high quality phono stage, then I would go for the Umami Red. Let's just go back to the SL, €750. It has a 4 millivolt output, the SL, and it's an 80 ohm or more than 80 ohm, which means, most phono stages are standard on 100 ohms for moving coils. So that is no problem at all, because it's more than, and that would be absolutely fine. I did try changing it a little bit, maybe putting it on 200, 400, and then 1,000 ohm. On its own, what it said there was correct. That's where it really performed well. So spend €750 or spend €4,000. That's up to you. My listening panel thoroughly enjoyed the Hana cartridges. We had 2 evening sessions, quite long sessions, and then I invited them back for a session with the Gold Note cartridges, and that will be coming up in my next video on phono stages in part 2. And then after that, we will have part 3, which will be the Autophon. I'm waiting for some of the Autophon ones still to come. Hopefully they'll arrive very, very soon. So I hope you found that interesting. And I hope you'll join me for the next one, for the Gold Note, and then for the Autophon. The Autophon's going to be a long video because they've got so many cartridges. I've been making them for so long, and I've got a huge range of them coming. So hang on for that one. But if I was going out shopping today for a Hana cartridge, you know what? I think the cheeky little SL Mark II would suit me fine. I'd probably slip in the mono for my old mono ones for if I had 2 turn arms, which I don't, of course. And if money was absolutely no object, it would be the Umami Red. If you have been, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, but until then, enjoy the music.